Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you an index detachment. I don't typically tell a faction that you should at least look at your index detachment, unless that's all they have right now, because I know that you had your index detachment for a while. But I do want to say, AdMech, you have a chance to do something really funny. How viable it is, results may vary, but I do have faith in you for a reason, right? There's two things going on in the game right now. One has been happening on and off throughout the entire edition where people are like, damn, I kind of hate this. And another one is slowly creeping up, which we've seen one person bring a thing, and more people bring a thing, and slowly but surely, people are falling back into bringing this line of things. Going to keep it ominous for right now, that way you have to continue to watch the video. Thank you for the watch time. Jokes aside, not to be that cynical, but you should at least listen to what I'm saying before you try to implement this in your games from a person that, my caveat, I'm not an AdMech player. I just see trends with other factions and go, hey, this might work out for you. And put out my advice that, once again, I say this for the friend to friend level, maybe local game store level. I don't think you should take my advice to an RTT and expect to go 3 and 0. Don't take it to a GT and expect to win, right? Viewer discretion is advised. But today, we're here with AdMech in the Rad-Zone core. Because Rad Bombardment, at the start of your first battle round for each enemy unit within your opponent's deployment zone, your opponent must decide whether that unit will take cover or stand firm, then roll 1d6 for each of those enemy units and apply the relevant result below. If they stand firm on a 3-up, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. If they take cover, they're battle shocked, and on a 5-up, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. And from battle round 2 onwards, they are suffering from fallout. At the start of your command phase during the second, third, fourth, and fifth battle rounds, roll 1d6 for each enemy within your opponent's deployment zone on a 3-up, 1 mortal wound, and must take a battle shock test. Alright, before we continue, I recommend the enhancement for this idea, Radio Suffusion. For 25 points from the second battle round onwards, when resolving the fallout effect of the Rad Bombardment Detachment roll, if the bearer is on the battlefield, roll 1d6 for each enemy within 6 inches of your opponent's deployment zone, in addition to those that are within your opponent's deployment zone. So, with the groundwork laid, what's going on in the game? Well, we're seeing a return of a little mechanic known as indirect fire. And now that people are finally bringing a vehicle I said you should bring, and I just want to say, I would like those pro players. I think this might not be fully accurate, but of course, when you're the face of something, the one that you probably see, I was already wearing my hat high when Richard Siegler, took the Scorpius Disintegrator and got good results. And everybody's like, wait, I guess I should take the Scorpius Disintegrator. Now, do have some tournament results with it within some lists, but people were frowning upon this. But I'm here to be, I guess, an ass. After talking about, you should probably take the Scorpius Disintegrator, I've been noticing that AdMech loadouts might be unoptimized, and I don't say that as a, oh, you're so gooberific or anything like that, but considering some things, I think there's instances that unfortunately the loadouts are making things harder for what is happening in the meta. So the Scorpius Disintegrator, a lot of people are finally bringing it for the Ferromite cannon. But I don't think you need to do that when you are still bringing things like Honor Dragoon crawlers with their neutron blaster, neutron laser. There we go. And the walkers that have las cannons. I can't remember which one is which right now. But yeah, I think you have enough tank busting at that point. So, what does the Scorpius Disintegrator have access to? The Belarus Energy Cannon. Or Belarus? Belarus Energy Cannon? Sure, whatever. Let's see if it's double L's equals Y. Blast, indirect fire, 36 inches. 2d6 hitting on fours, probably always going to be on fours because it can't be better with indirect fire rules, but also because of blistering salvos, each time this model makes an attack with the Belleros energy cannon that targets an infantry unit, +1 to hit. And you have Doctrine Imperatives, you can find a way to make sure that you're hitting on fours. With Strength 7, AP 2, Damage 1. Now, you get +1 to hit versus infantry. That's fine and dandy. At least a model or two might be just killed off because of rad bombardment, right? But it gets even better when you can put something like lethal hits onto 2d6 indirect fire with lethal dosage. Your shooting phase, when AdMech unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have the lethal hits. So, 2d6 attacks, indirect firing, making that AP2 probably AP1. Now, there's other things that you can possibly find if you want to fire this directly and keep your AP, but, you know, essentially your opponent will be dealing with lethal hits for 2d6 attacks, and you have a way to make that a little bit more consistent. And once again, yes, I am recommending Belisarius Call. With Invocation of Machine Vengeance, while a friendly AdMech unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. And the better thing about Call is that you have the Primarch thing, where if you are standing next to one of your faction's units, you get Lone Up. Perfect. So, with Call, and rerolling hits of indirect fire, and mortal wounds, and lethal hits, you can be a right pain in the ass. Now, it depends on how much you value your friendship for doing something like this, but I'm just saying, I think it might be a little bit more plausible than not, right? I think that there's genuine play behind this, and this is just one of the two things that's happening right now that you all have access to. And admittedly, when I check like some of these things, I'm like, has anybody done this? You know, I go through my list and the stats, or not my list, but I go through the list, stats, and so on and so forth to see. The upcoming thing has been used, and well, it's been in our face. Uh, the Stratoraptor, the Archaeopter, Stratoraptor. Each time this model makes a ranged attack that targets an enemy unit that doesn't have fly, +1 to the hit roll. Monster, did you just tell me to use an aircraft? And one that has hover? Yes, I have, because I've been noticing that aircraft actually isn't too dead. I don't know how many people have noticed that enough, but genuinely, aircraft might not be too dead. I know it's not as powerful as editions past, but so far, we recently just saw John Lennon with a Storm Raven gunship. Yep, I totally nailed which Space Marine vehicle is which. Um, we've seen Scary almost the entire edition with the Void Raven bomber. I've been trying to be a truther in Crusher Stampede Hive Crone. I know it's bad. Just let me cope for a second. And we've seen Tau with Tiger Sharks. We've seen Tyranids with a different one, the Harridan, which is Forge World. So that goes to say, we've seen aircraft, right? And not all of the aircraft are good. That's why recommending this one, into which you have 2 Cognis Heavy Stubbers, 2 Heavy Phosphor Blasters, a Twin Cognis Las Cannon, and your command uplink can become a chaff launcher to give you smoke. While not only being aircraft, if you want, you can flip this to hover. So, not flip as in back and forth throughout the game, but instead of dealing with the aircraft situation, da 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 da, this could be hover. So, if this is an aircraft, you can have aircraft rules, which i.e. true line of sight. And if you don't want that, you can hover a las cannon and an ignores cover, 6 attacks, you know, whatever. And then an additional 6 attacks with rapid fire 3 and sustain hit 1 on the Cognitive Heavy Stubber over your opponent's head, and +1 to hit can be around reroll hit rolls of 1. I don't think that you need the lethal hits on this situation, but that's to say that you can do it, right? And thinking that this was insane because I was looking at hello to Alex Landfear. Welcome to the video. Um That happens very rarely at the times that I've had to start recording now, so that's kind of funny that that happened today. But welcome to the video. So, moving to the fact that an aircraft with hover can still be a little bit viable, I want to say that I was also thinking about the fuselage because it does additional mortal wounds, but it that's all it might do. However, there is a unit that we have seen in combination with the unit I just talked about that came up in a list that intrigued me about a month ago. I forgot the date of it, but we'll see it in a second. Cerberus Sulphurhounds. Each time this unit ends a charge move, select one enemy unit within engagement range of it and roll 1d6 for each model in this unit that is within engagement range of that enemy unit. Adding 2 to the result if this unit started its charge move within 6 inches of one or more friendly AdMech units. Battle line units, excuse me. AdMech battle line units. For each 4-up, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So, with this, and for a cheap package, now it is mounted, so you have to, do some shenaniganizing with the movements or whatever. Does have anti-vehicle 4-up devastating wounds extra attack, so it can't be terribly terrible, right? Uh, Charge into a unit if they've taken mortal wounds from your rad bombardment. The other thing that I would like to just highlight about that is this is probably more annoying for your opponent than one may think, right? Because if usually in other armies, right, the tanks are in the deployment zone, getting a angle, or not farther than 6 inches out from it. So if they're slowly taking mortal wounds, and then you are then doing indirect fire with lethals, if they do come out of that, and if you can get the angle, right, and the range to still do it into their deployment zone, then you have Cerberus Sulphurhounds charging down for pretty cheap with some mortal wounds and anti-vehicle devastating wounds. Shit that shouldn't just go poof will go poof. Not to mention you have a aircraft that could be hovering with a las cannon that +1 to hit. There's a conversation to be had that a lot of things could go pop. I understand that not everybody is a believer in some of the damage that AdMech can do, right? And I know that I'm forming this on the basis of mortal wounds, good rolls, lethal hits, right? I understand that you do also have additional access to mortal wounds with things like tank shock and extinction order. Right, one tech priest model from your army and one objective marker within 2 feet of that model. Roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within range of that objective marker. On a 4-up, they suffer 1 mortal wound and must take a battle shock test. So as you can see, there's a lot of battle shock tests and mortal wounds happening around this area. So that just makes the game a little bit easier for you when you have things like sustained hits out of Peerless Eradicator, lethal hits out of Lethal Dosage, autoclavic denunciation. Now, mind you, keeping this is only for the bearer, so don't forget that. I read that after some time. I was like, oh yeah, and then I had to burst my own bubble. It's only for the bearer. But I understand chipping away at your opponent isn't the most exciting game, but it is a game that could get pretty annoying really fucking quickly, right? You have angles that you shouldn't have between aircraft that possibly is hovering, indirect fire, and then just random bullshit doing wounds. Yeah, that'll happen. And the other thing that kind of drew the Sulphurhounds, to my attention, is because I was looking at a list for Halo's Creed last month. Jason McKenzie brought, well, you look at that, a full squad of Sulphurhounds, and also brought the Stratoraptors. And you'd be going, well, come on now, you didn't get the Disintegrators out of nowhere. No, I promise. Go look at my other AdMech videos. I've been a Disintegrator truther. It was nice to see this. But, that was that craziness that, oh, there's some play for it in Halo's Creed. Going to this one, there was conversation of the Dune Crawler with the neutron laser, so it's like, well, I don't know if you need both the Disintegrator and the Dune Crawler, so that's what I'm saying. If you have the points, look into maybe taking the Neutron Laser on a Dune Crawler for that aspect. But for Rad-Zone Core, we haven't seen for a while. But it is to say that the people that did play this are okay with looking into some call. I think you need to look into some call action. You got triple disintegrators here, so you have the points for this type of stuff, right? You have the points for it. Uh, Peerless Eradicator on the Manipulus, of course, is pretty good for the Breachers. But yeah, I think it's worth at least looking at. You have the points already dedicated for Disintegrators. I've talked about the fact that the Rush Stalkers could benefit from using the anti-infantry weapons instead of just straight up devastating wounds and going for there. But you have points. AdMech has points to experiment with the tech choices, if you want to call it that, uh, because it's looking pretty hordy this edition. Pretty hordy. So, just want to make a quick video on the fact that I'm not saying Rad-Zone Core is going to be better than Skitarii Hunter Cohort. I'm not going to say that it's going to be better than Halo's Creed Battleclade. But I think it's worth at least looking into, given what you can do and what other people are doing. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.